Hello and welcome to Shannon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So this week's video is going to be a little bit different in that I have a lot of garden tasks that I need to do and really some random garden tasks that I need to do this week, but I really don't have a big chunk of time to complete them all at once. So I'm going to break them down into smaller pieces in more manageable chunks of time and just try to complete as many as I can this week. And I want to bring you guys along with me and share some of the things that I'm doing around the garden and how I'm breaking up those tasks so that I am making it more manageable, particularly when I've got such a busy week. So I'm actually going to be recording this video probably over the span of 2 or 3 days and just fitting in as many garden tasks as I can along the way. So I'm hoping to include some flower seed planting. I've got a succulent container that I want to plant. I'm hoping to plant in my perennial garden. I don't know if I'll be able to get to that, but hopefully I'll at least be able to do some. And then I also have a few containers that I want to round out as well. So I'll bring you guys along with me and share what I'm able to complete and some tips along the way. And I'm so excited to get started and can't wait to share that with you guys. So with that, let's get to it. All right, you guys, so I've got about 10 minutes and this is one little project that I wanted to get completed, and I'm doing a little succulent container. It's not a large container. This is going to be on a tabletop. And so I've got my container here and I'll show you guys this side. I thought that was a really cool design and it actually ties in with another container that I have on my patio in the backyard. So as I mentioned, this is going on a tabletop. So if you see below here, I'm going to be putting some felt pads on the bottom just to make sure that it doesn't scratch the table. And then I'll be putting my succulents in here to go on top. Now the container is by Chelsea Gardner or Chelsea Planters, and I'm not being sponsored in any way by this company, but I did want to mention it in case you guys were interested in taking a look or if you like the container. And it says that it's frost-proof pottery. So I'm first going to start by putting my pads on the bottom of this container. So I'll just flip it over here. All right, so I've got my felt pads and I'm just going to go around, make sure not to cover up the holes here and just place these around. I've got my pads on the back here. I'm just going to flip it back over. And I'm going to fill it up with cactus potting mix. And this is really fast draining. So that's why you want to make sure when you're planting your succulents to plant with the appropriate potting mix, because you don't want these to get boggy or sit in wet soil at all. You really want it to be very fast draining to help emulate its natural environment. So I'm going to show you guys the succulents that I chose here. And one thing I did notice is that all but one are just marked as succulents. So I have my first succulent here, and you can see that it just got rained on a bit. There was a little shower that came through. But this, I believe, is copper tone stone crop. Now, if you guys think that's anything different, please let me know in the comments, but I believe that's what this one is. I think that's really pretty how it fades into that lighter green here. So I'll get that one planted. And then this one is hens and chicks. Now, this one was marked, so I will show you guys the tag here. And that's the flaming red sky variety. So we do know what we've got here, but then I've got two that I am not quite sure. I'm going to have to do some more research, but it's not marked. It's just marked as a succulent, and very pretty, kind of that greenish, bluish gray. And it's got a little bit of pink in there as well. So that's a very pretty succulent. And here, I'll show you guys the tag. It legitimately just says succulent. So all of them are marked for bright light, but that's all I've got for that one. And with this one, I wanted to show you guys too. It's got a couple little baby ones here as well. And I've got another unmarked succulent. Not sure what this is. I'm going to have to do some research, but here's the tag where it just says succulent and that it needs bright light. So I'm going to get these planted and I'm going to start with my cactus mix and then just place these inside. I may add some portulaca to it. We'll see how it goes, or if I just like it with just the succulents that I have here. But I do have some portulaca sitting off to the side, and I know that would do well in that kind of environment too and add some color. So we'll see. I'll see once I get to the end. All right, you guys, so I have finished planting and I'm just brushing this off with an old paintbrush that never had any paint on it. It was never used. And I thought, well, this might be ideal to just kind of brush off some of this dirt from the leaves, because I'm not sure with with the amount of rain that we've been having here lately, I'm not sure that I want to go ahead and water these because I think that they're going to get watered quite enough with the rain coming in. So I'm just going to kind of clean up here a little bit with the paintbrush, and the rest of it will get washed off in the rain. All right, so I think I'm done here. That was a quick little project, but something that I've been meaning to do and just hadn't gotten to. So my 10 minutes are up and I'm moving on to the next one in my next time slot I have available. All right, you guys, so here's the finished product of the succulent planter, and I think it looks really cool. I really love succulents and so excited. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm gonna try to identify the two that weren't marked, but if you guys know the type of succulents that these are, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate it. All right, so one task done, and I'll be moving on to the next one. All right, you guys, so it's another day, and I've got probably about 30 or 45 minutes to get some tasks done. And today I'm going to be focusing on my containers a bit. Now, one thing I really need to get done is planting a new rosemary that I have. I have a rosemary in a container already, and I'm actually intending on doing more rosemary in ground probably later this year or next year. But I have a smaller variety that I'm putting in another container because I use so much rosemary. This variety is called Roman Beauty, and I'll show you guys right here. Now this one actually just gets to 2 to 3 feet wide and high, so it sounds perfect for a container, and I need to go ahead and get it planted. I've had it for at least a couple of weeks, so I've got to get that done today. Now I don't know about you guys, but I actually had a little bit more time when I first came out trying to decide what task I was going to do. But then as I continued to dive deeper into all my tasks, I kind of got sidetracked with everything that I need to do, and other things kept coming up. And so I had to stop myself and just decide on what's most important. So the rosemary is definitely one. I think I'm going to plant some seeds today, and I'm going to give you guys an update on some seeds I planted about a week ago just to show how quickly they've germinated and started growing. And I'll let you guys know what I'm planting as well here in just a moment. And then I may do a couple of hanging baskets. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that today, but we'll see. I'll just see what I can fit in before I have to stop and move on to something else. All right, so that's my rosemary, and let me grab the seeds and I'll show you guys what I'm planting in containers as far as seeds as well. Okay, so I grabbed my seeds so I can share with you guys the seeds I'm planting today. Now I'll insert some pictures here. I absolutely love planting flower seeds at the beginning of the summer and just direct sowing them in my soil in containers. And I've done that for years, and really there's no rhyme or reason to my planting when it comes to seed planting. I kind of like it to just look like a wildflower garden without necessarily any planning, just for them to come up as they want to. And I'll thin them out if it gets too thick, but a lot of times I really like those containers nice and full of different flowers. So I'll insert a couple of pictures here of containers that I've done in the past, and then I'll share with you guys, like I said, an update on the one that I did about a week ago. Now in today's video, I'll show you guys the seeds that I'm planting. First, we have zinnias, which I absolutely love, and they're so easy to plant from seed. So I always have a great time with zinnias and just find them very easy, as well as our next flower, which are cosmos. And look at these colors. Isn't that pretty? So I've planted just cosmos in containers in the past, and they're almost airy-like. They're very light and move with the breeze. I think that they're beautiful. So I'm very excited to add the cosmos. We have straw flower. Now, I don't think I've planted straw flower before, but I just recently saw it when I went with my family to Disney's Flower and Garden. And I saw straw flowers and just thought they were so unique looking. So I'm really excited to plant those. And then I've got another variety of cosmos. Look at this with the pink or pinkish purple on the outside. I thought that was really beautiful. So I was super excited about that. And that's called Candy Stripe. The other cosmos I got was Sensation Mixed Colors. So that's just a mix. And then last I got dahlias right here. And I just think that's going to be beautiful. Now, I don't know if I've planted dahlias from seed before. I can't remember, but I'm going to try my hand at it. So I'm really excited about this. Seeds are so easy to plant for me. And I'll also show you guys, just to protect the seeds, at least until they germinate and start coming up, I do put the bird netting on top of there, just so I don't have any squirrels that go in and dig up the seed, or birds, and it's left to actually germinate. Because I found in the past, when I was planting my seeds, that a lot of them would get dug up before they even had a chance to germinate. So I find that this is really helpful, and I'll show you guys that as well. All right, so let's get to planting and see how much I can get done today. All right, you guys, so I am going to start by planting my rosemary, and I'm beginning to fill this container. I'm actually going to fill it with both organic succulent and cactus mix, and then mixing in my organic potting soil for containers as well. And I'm mixing in the succulent and cactus mix because I'm wanting to make sure that I have very well draining soil. The rosemary is not going to want to sit in water, and I want to try to mimic its natural environment as much as possible. So I am mixing that in just so I can make sure that this soil is going to be nice and well draining for this rosemary. Now, just to give you guys a little bit more information about the Roman Beauty rosemary, it has lavender blue flowers in spring, and it reaches, as I mentioned, 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. So it's great for containers. This needs to be planted in sun. It does say that it has fall color, and it's good to USDA Zone 7. Now I'm in 7B8A, so I think that this one will work out just fine for me. So I'm going to get these two things mixed in, and then I'll plant my rosemary and move on to my next container. Right, so I've been mixing in my regular potting soil with the cactus and succulent potting soil, and just have been stirring it in as I go along. And I'm going to place my rosemary here, which I think this green looks really cool with this gray. And then I'm going to fill in with the remaining soil. Just kind of fill it in here, and then this one will be all done. All right, you guys, so now I'm going to go ahead and plant my seed. Now, I checked the back of each packet, and they all are suggested to plant to a depth of 1/4 of an inch, which makes it really easy. Now, if I have seeds that require multiple depths, then I'll just start, let's say one needs to be 1 inch deep. Then I will start with those, and then I'll put soil on top, and then maybe the next one needs to be 1/2 inch. So maybe I put 1/2 inch of soil on top of the ones that needed to be planted at a depth of 1 inch. And then I'd put about 1/2 an inch of soil, and then do the 1/2 inch, and then maybe 1/4 of an inch of soil to plant the seeds that are recommended to be planted at 1/4 inch. So that's what I found is the easiest way to plant my seed, which is what I've done in the previous container that I did about a week ago. But in this container, everything needs to be planted to 1/4 of an inch. So that's what I'm going to do. I've put in my potting soil here. This is a really large container that I got from Costco, I believe, when they had them in stock earlier in spring. And so I'm going to fill the soil and then put my seeds down and lay them all out. And again, I'm not super organized about how I do my seeds. I really like it to kind of be wild and look like a wildflower garden. And so I just sprinkle them all over the place, and then I'll put soil on top, and that will be it. I'm going to water lightly, and I generally try, unless it's raining, I try to lightly water my seeds until they germinate every day, and then they get a little bit bigger. I just keep them moist, but I don't keep them soaking wet. So a light watering will do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll sprinkle the seeds and show you guys that once I get this potting soil up to the appropriate amount. All right, so I've got it planted to the appropriate depth, and I'm just going to sprinkle my seeds. Actually, I think I'll put them in my hand. I do save these little packages that they come in because I like to log which seeds do well and which seeds maybe I didn't have so much luck with, just so I have that information for the next year. But I'm just randomly sprinkling these, no rhyme nor reason to what I'm doing. And I'll get these all put in and then cover with a nice thin layer about 1/4 of an inch on top, since that's its recommended planting depth. And that'll be it. So I'll get this finished and then move it over to the appropriate place that I want these wildflowers to grow in this container. All right, so I just wanted to share with you guys, these are the seeds that I planted a week ago, and look how quickly they've germinated. This has zinnias and a butterfly mix, cosmos, butterfly weed, and all sorts of different flowers in here. Some that are included with the butterfly mix, and I'll show you guys everything that I've got planted here. But this is just 1 week of germination. Now here is the bird netting that I was telling you guys about that I covered it with. I think it's fine to go ahead and remove it now that they've germinated, and I'm actually just going to reuse this and put it on the new container that I just planted and shared with you guys, so that those are given a chance to germinate too before anything digs them up. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a progress report here, just in 1 week, how quickly these seeds have taken off. Here's the finished result with the rosemary. And I actually have this planted where I have my tomatoes and where I have my other herbs. So just to the right of that, I have all my herbs and some zucchini and a raised planter bed. And I need to plant this new container of oregano, so I'll be doing that. I've got a little bit of lavender that's blooming there. And then cucumbers, which I'm not sure that those are going to do so well. I waited a little too late for that, so we'll see how that pans out. But here are my herbs, and then the rosemary. And then over here, I have my canning bags of different tomatoes. And I actually did these three about 2 weeks after I did the first row. And you can tell a huge difference in the size of the tomatoes here. But I've got those planted with the marigolds, and just kind of wanted to give you guys a little overview of this area right here. All right, you guys, day 3 of squeezing and planning where I can. This is actually the day before I'm posting this video. I've been running errands all morning, and I've got probably maybe at best an hour to complete some more tasks in the garden. But today I think I'm going to focus on planting some hanging containers. I've got 2 that are going in different locations, so they don't need to match. And I've got some leftover plants that I bought for planting in ground and planting in my other containers. So I'm going to utilize what I have and just figure it out and figure out how I want to plant those containers. Now, both of them are pretty much in full sun. So I'll be using plants that also are good for full sun. And then I'm also going to try to finish up planting some marigolds with my herbs. I think I showed you guys my herb garden on the second day that I was planting, and just showed you guys what those raised beds looked like. And while I planted marigolds with my tomatoes, when I actually planted the tomatoes, I never finished up planting the marigolds with my herbs that I planted well before the tomatoes. So I'm going to do that today, and that's going to help deter pests from the herbs. I also have a couple of zucchini plants in there, as well as cucumbers, and the marigolds will help deter pests from those plants as well. So I'm going to get that finished. I'm going to do my hanging planters. If I have time for anything else, then I'll try to squeeze that in too. But I think that it's realistic to at least be able to do those few things that I mentioned. All right, you guys, so let's get to it. All right, you guys, so I've got my first container here. I've got my little planting mat underneath, hopefully to catch all my spills. And I'm just going to put some potting mix in here. And then I'm trying to decide, I think I'm going to work with pentas in the middle of this one, and then do portulaca on the outside. So I'll show you guys and see if that's where I'm leaning toward, or if I'm going to mix something in differently. But that's what I'm leaning toward for right now. So I'll go ahead and get these planted. Now, as I mentioned, these are in full sun, and I'm actually putting this hanging container right next to a hummingbird feeder that I have. So I think that adding the pentas, which I know the hummingbirds love as well, and in addition to the butterflies and bees, I think that that'll be a nice addition there. So it'll just create another avenue of feeding for the hummingbirds. You guys, so I've just placed my plants in here, and I actually really like this. I think I'm going to leave it as is. So I put my pentas here in the middle because I'm going to be viewing this particular hanging container from all directions. So I decided to go with my pentas in the middle, which will grow taller, and then my portulaca, which will fill in and drape over. Now, both plants are great for the full sun. This is going to be a container that's really in the hot, full sun all day. So I need some hardy annuals that are going to be able to withstand that. And we've got that planted here. So I'm going to fill in with my potting soil, and this is done. That was relatively easy. I kind of went in having an idea of what I wanted that to look like. And I am actually also incorporating some of the plants that I have in containers where this hanging planter is going to go. So I think that'll tie in the colors nicely and just bring everything together so it won't just look like an anomaly out by itself in a randomly planted container. So I'll go ahead and fill this in, and this one will be done, and I'm going to move on to my second container. All right, you guys, so I've got my second container here, and I'm going to do the same as before. I'm filling it up with potting mix. I think in this one, I'm probably going to plant vinca and then maybe alternate between pentas and zinnias that I have left over. And so we're going to stay in that pink family. So I'm going to put in my potting soil, and then I'll show you guys as I start to add the plants and make my final decisions on if that's how I'm sticking with this container. So I've kind of placed my plants in here, and originally I was going to put the vinca more in the middle and then maybe populate around it. But then I kind of just decided to make it a little bit more organic, for lack of a better word, where it just looks like things are popping through. I kind of like it to have this wild look a bit. And so I put in some zinnias, I have my vincas, and I've got my remaining pentas here, and I really like how this looks. Now this basket is definitely gonna attract the butterflies. I think it's gonna be very easy to maintain. These all have about the same watering requirements and sun requirements. So I really think that this is gonna do well, and I'm very pleased with it. Actually, if you notice here on the vinca, the light pink and the white, that there's this dark pink here in the middle. And I like how the zinnias and the pentas pull off that. So even though I just had these remaining and left over, they all work well together. And you know, that goes to a point too where it's nice to stay in a color scheme when you're planting and when you're buying all your plants, because you can mix and match them more easily. So I found that definitely here with this basket as well. So I'm just going to backfill it in with some potting soil, and this second container is finished. Okay, so here is my raised bed for my herbs, and I also have my zucchini here. I've got peppers tucked in, some cucumbers, and I'm going to get these marigolds planted. Now, as I mentioned, marigolds are great companion plants for your vegetables and for your herbs. They really attract the beneficial insects while detracting the harmful insects. So they're just great to have. I mentioned earlier that I planted these, or I planted my marigolds when I planted my tomatoes, but I didn't ever get to doing the herbs. So I'm just doing that now and tucking them in here randomly. I also have an extra oregano that I need to plant, so I'm going to go ahead and get that tucked in as well. Now, the great thing about doing the raised containers is that the soil is so workable and already ready to go. So it just takes no time for me to get these things planted. So I'm just going to tuck these in here, and then I'll be done with that task as well. All right, you guys, so that was really quick and easy just to tuck these marigolds in. I did orange and yellow and did it in both beds. And then just beyond that bed is where I have the seedlings for the wildflowers that I planted about a week ago that I shared with you guys in a different segment in this video. So I'm going to have a ton of wildflowers here at the end of these two beds once those fill in. All right, you guys, so as I was finishing up the marigold planting, and I was looking over everything here with my tomatoes, and then where I planted my new hanging planter, I noticed that the planter right below has an empty spot right there. And I have one plant that I could tuck in that would match the color scheme back here. I have this portulaca here, and I think I can tuck this in and it'll look really, really nice. It's the tropical punch portulaca, and it just has that pinkish orangey color, which I have going on back here already. You can see in the lantana, and then I've got it in the mandevilla, as well as this hibiscus, which is just about to open here. So I think that'll look really nice, and it'll make use of an extra plant that I've got laying around. So I'm going to get that one planted as well. I've been working for just about an hour, and I think it's time for me to wrap this up and move on to more errands. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. I know this video is a little bit different than some of my other videos, but it definitely is reflective of those busier weeks when we just don't have a lot of time to spend in the garden and are just trying to fit in tasks in those smaller pockets of time to see how much we can get done. And that was certainly the case for me this week. So thank y'all for joining me for that. and taking a look at some of those smaller gardening tasks that, while they are smaller, they're certainly important as well. Now, I didn't get to my perennial garden this week, and I'm hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be sure to share that with you guys. I've got a few perennials I'm adding to the garden, and then also want to share with you guys what's blooming in there as well. Now, you can stay tuned by making sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I upload a new video. All right, you guys, thank you so much again. I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and until next time, happy gardening and goodbye.